Yum, yum!
Hey everybody, and welcome back to Modo with Ellery. And this is actually something that I saw on the Facebook threads. I was just going to make a really short video. It was going to be like a minute long, but then it looked like there's some more things that might be nice to cover. So I thought I'd turn it into an actual episode. I do, just as a side note, have a number of other ones that are sitting just waiting to be recorded that will be out soon, and then there's some other exciting stuff that I've got coming out as well. Anyway, so with that, let's just dive right in it. In this episode, we're going to be looking at transferring baked data or any kind of paint and texture data in Modo from one image or one UV layout into another image, another UV layout. Now, this could be if you want to repack something and emphasize texture space for one part versus another, and on one you want to have the UVs laid out so everything is equal size, so you get equal texel density, or if you want to take one where you're just going to rebake part of an image for part of an object. Lots of different applications for this, but there are going to be many times where you want to have texture on one UV map in one image, and you want to transfer it to another one. So let's look at how we can do that. Now, with anything like this, there are a number of different ways that you can do this. This is the way that I use and I've had a lot of success with. There are other ways that I know and I've also used in the past as well, but this is the way that I tend to get the quickest results and the easiest way to actually do it, giving you also a bunch of flexibility. So what I've got here is the just out of the Modo stock content for the game data, and this is the Unreal version of this chest. This has UV maps on it already. It has a texture UV map, and then it also has a texture detail UV map. We're mostly just going to be looking at the texture one. And then it has a number of different, let's hide these here first, has a number of different material layers on them. It has base channels here, so these are all set for the Unreal material. So it's got base color, normal, specular, metallic roughness, and ambient occlusion. Those are all set up on here. And what we want to do is we want to be able to transfer this, which is basically our color image, onto a different UV map. Now, one thing to note is if you do it the way that I'm showing you here, you won't get all of the bleed on the edges the same way. So just something to note. If you have everything set up well, though, that shouldn't really matter because you should have enough overlap data to not give you any weird unsightly seams. So let's go ahead and hide that. And the first thing I'm going to do is actually create a new UV layout. Now, I mostly like the way that this is right now, so just for the sake of time, I'm just going to go ahead and copy this and make a new map, which we'll call transfer. Seems like a good name. And then I'm just going to right-click here and paste my UV data back in. That way I've got all of the stuff that was on the original. And then what I'm going to do, just to give myself something different to work with, again, like I said, you might have actual specific needs for how you're setting up another UV, but in this case, really all I want to do is repack them so that I get something that looks different. So I'm going to repack everything checked on, and I'm going to go by pixel size with a 10 pixel border. We'll click OK, and as you can see, it's restacked everything here. We've got some open space, which could be useful if you want to include something in, and then it's given everything a little bit more padding than it had in the original. So that's based off of that 10 pixel distance when I repacked it. But the problem is now that if I want to be able to use this with this, I don't have the data on there that I need. So what I'm going to do is leave this texture, this transfer UV map selected. And then I'm going to go up here into the shader tree. I'm going to add a new layer, image map, and I'm just going to create a new image. And I'm going to put that inside of my folder here with my video. And I'm going to call this diffuse transfer. This is technically a base color because I'm using the Unreal material, but we'll call it a deal. So diffuse transfer. Now I'm going to make this a target image. Now there are two things also going on here, which I'll mention as we get going. The first thing is that as you're doing this, if you start with something that has an RGBA, that has an alpha channel in it, by default, once you create that, it's going to come in with a blank alpha channel, which means that it will be transparent and it won't override anything else on the image. And then you can actually use that alpha channel later for texture packing or something like that. In this case, we're not going to need it for that, but I'm going to leave this on RGBA just so I can show you two different ways that this can happen. So you can see with this set to diffuse color, here, let's go ahead and change this to our Unreal base color. You can see no changes are happening. If I pull up my preview render, you can see nothing's happening. If I turn that off, still nothing happening because it's just an empty alpha channel sitting on top of the Unreal base color channel, and it's not doing anything because it's basically nothing there. Now, if I had done that and had a black image just to start with no alpha, then this would be all black and I'd have to hide it. So let's go ahead and hide that or get rid of the preview render for right now. So what I'm going to do now is with this selected here, I can double check and make sure that this is set up the way that I want. But if I had this UV map, the transfer UV map selected when I created it, it's going to by default assign it to the transfer UV texture set. You can always double check that if you feel so inclined. So now with that there, and right now it's not contributing to anything, I can go ahead and transfer the data just right here by doing right click and just choosing bake to texture. And what that will do is that will take anything that has the current texture channel effect, so in this case Unreal base color, and it's going to assign that everything in the stack on into there. In this case we only have the one image, so when we click bake to texture, it will go to our baking, it will just transfer everything over. It should be pretty quick because it's not really doing anything, it's just making sure that it's reassigning and anti-aliasing the pixels from where they were on the other UV to where they are now. So now if you have that, and this is still visible, you'll see that basically nothing happens. So if we just maximize this view here, you can see that we've got this here. When we turn it off, there is a very slight difference happening here, and that's just based off of the size of the texture. But if we zoom in really, really close here, I have advanced GL set up with some anti-aliasing and stuff, so it's a little slow here, but we turn this on and off, you can see that our bake is just a little bit softer. You could always bake at higher resolution. I'm just doing it this resolution to save time, but you do see that there is essentially no visual change other than that, which if you're not right up on the object is going to be essentially negligible and not something that you would notice. You can see that, there you go. So everything is transferred, and we can double check this just by double clicking on this guy, and you'll see that we have our texture laid out. In this case, we have the band main part of the chest going left to right, whereas if we go to this one, it's going up and down. So we can see we've changed that, and we've successfully transferred everything over. Now, where this method becomes really powerful, in my opinion, is when it comes to actually combining multiple things into one. So in this case, I've got this this direct transfer in here, and it's just giving me everything that was in there, and it's just sitting in a different location now. But the other thing that I could do is I could take, and let's turn on a few different layers here. I've got two occlusion passes that are handling some of the grime in the corners, and then some of the lightning kind of wear on the edges, so the occluded areas versus the convex areas. And then I've got some streaks for some dirt and some kind of spilling, windswept kind of stuff on it. And then I have just a general dirt texture sitting on it as well, just to give us a little bit of extra kind of grunge. Obviously, this is a really, really quick job of adding in detail to this. You could go in with an empty texture layer and paint on detail, and this would also work. Now, where this is cool, though, is that when you're using this with procedural textures, the thing is we see this here with the procedural, but then when we look at the real-time, we're not getting anything, because those procedural textures are not showing up in real time. So let's go ahead and close that again. And then what I'm going to do is with this visible, I shouldn't have closed that yet, but with this visible, you can see that we're just getting the original texture. When we hide that, we're getting the new kind of grungified texture, right? So let's also do this then here. Let's go ahead and duplicate this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the image that's applied. So let's go up here, and actually before I do anything else, I'm going to go ahead and save all of my images because those do not save automatically with your file. So let's go ahead and do save all images. So now that those are actually saved. And now what we're going to do is apply a new image here. So we'll have basically a clean version and a dirty version, if you will. So let's go ahead and do add clip. And let's just do a new image. And this one I'll call this diffuse worn. That'll work, because we've got one where we're adding wear to it. And use all the same settings for now. Let's just go ahead and click OK. And then same thing, right click, bake to texture. And what this will do now, it's going to take a little bit longer to bake because it's actually having to calculate those two occlusion layers, and it's having to combine and merge everything together. And so it's going to take just a little bit longer to bake, but in the end, we're going to have everything all put together just the way it looks in preview, but we'll have that in the real-time OpenGL environment. And it also means that we'll have that to export if we're going to use that in a game engine. And there we go. Through the magic of pausing my video capture, we now have that complete and baked. So let's go ahead and hide this. And we're going to turn this off. And now if we show this, we'll see that we have our dirty version. So our version here is all set up. And we pretty much have everything that we had in all of these layers together, but all just happening in one layer. Now, really, what I've got is a clean version and a dirty version, just by baking in some of the texture values that that were contributing to that originally that we didn't see in OpenGL, but we do see inside a preview. Now we actually get to see them in both places, and now we have two different images based off of our new UV texture locations that we'd created, and those are all set and transferred over. So this is a good and powerful method for being able to transfer your texture data if you need from one UV layout to another, whether you're optimizing that UV layout or something else that you need to change and have an alternate UV. And this is also a great and powerful method for combining several different texture inputs. In this case, I'm using all on the Unreal base color and transferring those all into a single image map that I can use either for OpenGL view inside of Modo without having to worry about opening preview, or for export to real-time for use in game engines so that I can apply that there. So that does it for this one. If you like this video or videos like it, you can follow me on Patreon, patreon.com/Ellery, or you can get this episode or any other one a la carte on Gumroad, gumroad.com/Ellery. Please stay tuned. There will be more episodes like this coming out soon. I'm going to be getting on a weekly-ish schedule for getting these out, and also have another big kit about to be released. And so stay tuned to see that. Until then, go make something cool, and I'll see you in the next one.